those of you who don't know it, I have a 24-year-old daughter, Katie Johnson, who married Todd Johnson of this congregation a few years ago. And I have a son, Ryan, who's a junior at Harding. And I'd like to take you back about 3 years when the time was approaching for Ryan to leave to go to Harding. And of course, Katie had already been there a few years. But as this time approached, I knew that I wanted to bring our family together after the summer, and right before the fall semester started, I knew I wanted to bring our family together and mark that moment with something spiritual, and mark that moment from the long journey that we have enjoyed together and shared as a family, and all the times that we'd spent together. And I was struggling with what I was going to say. A few weeks before this time came, I happened to be reading in Joshua chapter 4. In Joshua chapter 4, it talks about the Israelites, who were then led by Joshua, of course. They were to the point where they were through with their wanderings in the wilderness, and they were at the banks of the Jordan River, and they were preparing to cross the Jordan and start a new adventure in their world, which was the conquering of many cities and obtaining and living in the land of Canaan, the promised land. So here they are on the banks of the Jordan River, and God is instructing Joshua what to tell the people. And what God told Joshua was to have the priest walk out into the Jordan River. And as soon as they did, if you remember, and you can turn there if you want to, the waters of the Jordan separated. It says the waters backed up upstream. And so in the same way that it did the Red Sea, it did the Jordan again. And they were able to walk across on dry land. But it was as soon as the priest entered the Jordan River. And so the priest entered, the river opened up, people started crossing across. The priest went out to about midway in the Jordan, it says, and they stood there holding the Ark of the Covenant. And thousands of people crossed. It says 40,000 soldiers crossed that were armed and ready for battle. If you can imagine, 40,000 soldiers crossing across the Jordan on dry land. And then God told Joshua, pick 12 men, one from every tribe. And he directed them in the middle of the river to pick up a stone. And it must have been a large stone, because it said, have them put it on their shoulder. So I'm picturing these 12 men, one from each tribe, lifting up this stone and putting it on their shoulder. And they were to do it where the priests were standing, which was in the middle. And so those 12 men walked out with those stones on their shoulders. And then eventually, God told Joshua, have the priest, when everybody was out, have the priest walk on out of the Jordan. And it says as soon as they stepped their feet out of the Jordan, the waters came back together. So that was indeed another miracle. But the most impressing thing in my mind was those stones. And God directed Joshua to tell those 12 men to take those stones where they were going to camp. And they camped at Gilgal. And I don't know if it was that night or soon after that, but they took those stones and they built some kind of a monument. And of course the Bible says it's there to this day, whenever that was written. But it was to be a monument of all that God had done for the Israelites, again, up to that point. It says, in the future, when your children ask you, what do these stones mean? Tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off, and these stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever. So the story of these stones impressed me. So I finally got it in my mind that when we sat down, which we did, I brought my family together, and if you haven't done this yet, and if you have done it, there's tears. And you bring your family together, and I told them this story about the journey the Israelites had been on and how they picked up these stones out of the river. And I used that illustration. I had Katie beforehand. I didn't tell her what we were going to do, but I had Katie, because I'm not very artsy and craftsy. But I told her to cut out different colored construction paper and cut out round things that look like stones. We're going to use them. That's all I told her. And so we had 12 stones, and I passed out 3 to each one of us, because there's 4 of us. So I passed out 3 to each one of us, and I simply said, write on the stone something that is memorable to you about the journey that we've been on as a family up to this point. And so we went through that, and we went one stone at a time with Terry and Katie and Ryan and myself writing things down, and we put them in the middle, and we went through each one of those 12 times. And I said, this is our monument that we're always going to remember the times that we shared together, and we're always going to look back at how God has blessed us. And so we had a prayer, and I kind of saw it out of the corner of my eye, but Katie was grabbing those things and kind of keeping them. And later, Terry and I think it was Christmas. Katie made she framed, I don't think it's the same stones, but it was the same words. And I just wanted to share it with you. Katie made this and presented it to us, but these are the things that came out of our family meeting before Ryan went to college. And these are the 12 things that were emphasized by the 4 of us. It says honor and respect, meals together, doing your best, prayer, character. Katie put God in the middle, church family, that's you all. Laughter. It says family, moms and dads. I'm not sure what that means. I can't remember. I don't know what that means. Family, moms and dads. And it has devotionals, it has daily Bible reading, and it has outdoor activities. And I just wanted to share that with you all this evening. I was very pleased of the things that all of us wrote down on those stones as far as their spiritual application, most of them, and their eternal application. And I'm very humbly before you. I struggle with presenting this to you because if you know any of us, you know we have faults, and we're praying each day, and I pray for my family each day that we'll continue to grow and be faithful. And the point of all of this is that for those of you all who have children at home, that you'll spend your time wisely, that you'll spend time with spiritual application, and when you come to this point where you're ready to part, at least this part of your life, that you'll be able to reflect back on how God has blessed you, and you can, again, reflect on those things that are spiritual in nature and eternal in nature. And for those folks who have passed this point, like I have now, help your children and your grandchildren to remain and reflect on those things that are eternal in nature. So thank you for indulging me tonight. This reminded me of a show and tell in elementary school. Those of you who are older will understand what show and tell is. This was my show and tell, so thank you for listening tonight. If there's anyone here who has any needs of the congregation, anything that we can pray with you about, anyone who wants to make that all-important decision to become a Christian tonight, this will be a great time to do that as we stand and sing.